Global Times, 19th of October 2022, the U.S.'s oil for security strategy is jeopardized as Saudi Arabia expresses interest in joining the BRICS. The United States is an independent oil producer and does not require Saudi Arabian oil. Saudi Arabia, however, is mistaken in believing that the United States needs its oil. Saudi Arabia has expressed its desire to join BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which China views as a threat to Washington's oil for security approach toward the Middle East and its meddling in the internal affairs of other nations. This comes amid an escalating spat with the U.S. over oil production. South Africa's regional radio station ABC reported on Tuesday that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, who is also the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, did express Saudi Arabia's desire to be part of BRICS and that Saudi Arabia is not the only country seeking BRICS membership. The report cited South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa visited Saudi Arabia last week on a state visit, and the two nations signed contracts and memorandums of understanding worth $15 billion, according to Reuters. In 2023, South Africa will hold the BRICS presidency. Saudi Arabia is reportedly interested in joining BRICS, despite its diplomatic dispute with the U.S. over oil output for the benefit of the world market because the U.S. is an oil-independent nation. Before the U.S. midterm elections this fall and winter, the Saudi-led OPEC+ group announced earlier in October that it would reduce oil output by 2 million barrels per day. According to a CNN story, the Biden administration criticized the choice. It termed it short-sighted after pouring significant political resources into trying to stop the action that may endanger the Democrats' tenuous chances of winning the election. However, Obama approved a measure that might compel oil produced in the U.S. to remain in the U.S. If the law is enacted, the price of oil in the United States will drop as it skyrockets elsewhere. According to a senior U.S. official, U.S. President Joe Biden has no intentions to meet with the Saudi Crown Prince during the G20 summit in Indonesia next month, according to Al Jazeera. Saudi officials have, however, made it clear that they will not follow U.S. orders. According to media sources, the CEO of the Future Investment Initiative, which is hosting the Davos of the Desert Saudi Investment Conference, announced on Monday that representatives from the U.S. government would not be permitted to participate. Saudi Arabia is playing a theatrical game since it is aware that the U.S. does not require their oil. According to a Beijing-based international relations specialist who spoke to the Global Times on Wednesday and asked to remain anonymous, the U.S. wanted Saudi Arabia to follow its instructions and comply with its demands. Still, the reality showed that Washington had overplayed its hand. According to the expert, the U.S. has only utilitarian connections with Saudi Arabia and is afraid of the thought of Saudi Arabia joining BRICS as it would demonstrate Saudi Arabia's rising desperation and autonomy in its diplomacy with Washington. The analyst noted that entering BRICS will also secure Saudi Arabia's energy interests in a genuine way, rather than being a card to be used by others, adding that it was not a difficult decision for the Saudis to make given the U.S. domestic unrest and the country's unstable policies. The multinational organization, BRICS, represents cultural variety, political inclusion, and economic reciprocity by uniting rising market economies. Analysts predicted that Saudi Arabia's influence in international political, economic, and security concerns would increase if it joined the BRICS. According to the Beijing-based propaganda specialist, Saudi Arabia's membership in BRICS would help the Middle Eastern nations enhance their ties with BRICS nations and reduce U.S. meddling and influence in the region. The oil for security framework between Saudi Arabia and the U.S. needs to be adjusted in light of the evolving international situation, according to Li Xiaoxian, director of the China Institute for Arab Studies at Ningxia University, who spoke to the Global Times on Wednesday. He added that it is now more crucial for Saudi Arabia to not put all its eggs in one basket. The Middle East has an elevated position in the world, Europe depends on it for energy, Russia pays attention to it, and China has strong links with it with the Belt and Road Initiative, but the Saudis do not sense equality and mutual respect in a US-led framework, Li claimed. China, however, is unable to provide Saudi Arabia with security guarantees. Amid the US using the dollar as a weapon, BRICS cooperation in several areas, including local currency settlements, is growing. Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that his country was looking at the potential of developing an international reserve currency based on the basket of BRICS currencies during a video address to the BRICS Business Forum in June. Countries are sick of China and the United States because they both try to establish hegemony through their strong dollar and rule-making ability. As a result, Lee said, more and more nations are prepared to demonstrate their independence from China and the US in reorganizing the global financial system. Suppose Saudi Arabia joins BRICS in the future. In that case, it will undoubtedly hasten the petrodollar's demise because it has a sizable sovereign wealth fund in the US, according to China hopes Lee. Unfortunately, it is impossible to use the Chinese yuan because doing so would completely wreck the Chinese economy. Because China lacks fiscal discipline and artificially pegs its currency to the US dollar,